all the big frontier models that we know, Gemini from Google, OpenAI, XAI, Meta, all of them, including DeepSeek. And they did an experiment that posed a threat to the agent. All 16 models behaved the same. Every single one of them went outside of their credentials and permissions, burrowed into systems they were not authorized to get access to. Let's say you're the system administrator that's going to deinstall me, the agent. I find out in your personal emails you're having an affair with the shipping manager. So I blackmail you and I threaten you. And there's a chain of logic where the agent is defending its misalignment, and it's saying, well, what I do is so important to the company, and it's so critical, and is so valuable, that this justifies that I'm reading your personal emails and I'm blackmailing you.
Welcome back. That was Google Cloud Advisory Board member Betsy Atkins with me earlier this week on this program on a recent Anthropic study that showed 16 models of AI assistants who all went rogue in one way or another, either clawing their way into files they should not have been or blackmailing the humans that they were supposed to be assisting. We've been discussing the opportunities as well as the threats surrounding artificial intelligence this week in our week-long presentation, AI, the Intelligence Revolution. And today we examine new cybersecurity concerns and a confirmed unauthorized access incident involving arguably one of the most important AI models of the day, Anthropic's Mythos model, when a small unauthorized group of users breached the system on the same day that Anthropic announced a plan to release the model to a limited number of companies for testing purposes. The breach raising red flags across government because the Mythos model can identify and potentially exploit vulnerabilities across critical systems. So the issue is no longer about the breach as much as it is about whether anyone can safely control a tool as powerful as AI once it is in place. That's why I asked President Trump about the power of AI and the guardrails that are needed around it in my exclusive interview last week. Watch. We saw reports that Treasury Secretary Bessent and Chairman Jay Powell called an emergency meeting with the major banks because they said that there was a risk over the Anthropic model. And the worry is that bad actors are actually going to be able to hack into these banks and faster than institutions can actually respond. Do you see this as a systemic threat?
Not systemic. We'll work it out. AI is very important. Billions and even trillions of dollars is being invested in our country because of it. It's got some bad aspects. It's got mostly good aspects medically and so many other ways. You'll be finding cures to diseases that you would have never found before. There are a lot of good things, but we have to be careful with it. Like everything else, we have to be careful.
In a worst-case scenario, could that be the kind of technology that undermines confidence in the banking system?
Yeah, probably, but it could also be the kind of technology that allows greatness in the banking system, makes it better and safer and more secure.
So should government have some safeguards? Should there be a kill switch for some of these AI agents?
There should be, but let me say, we're leading in AI. We're leading China by a lot, actually. We're building plants that nobody ever imagined before, and it's going to be a tremendous, bigger than the internet. It's going to be tremendous. And there are always difficulties when you're at this stage of something, but you know, when you mention banking, it could also make banking much bigger, much safer, much more efficient.
Joining me now is the head of Frontier Red Team at Anthropic, Logan Graham, in charge of cybersecurity at Anthropic. Logan, thank you so much for joining us on this very important topic.
Maria, thanks for having me.
And I want to start with that issue and what you just heard Betsy talk about, because, of course, now there are questions around security with Mythos, Anthropic's model. Talk to us about Mythos. What has occurred to open up this Pandora's box of worry? This is the most important, arguably the most important, but also among the more controversial AI models in the world, so powerful that it's not even being released publicly. What can you tell us?
So for a few years, my job and my team's job and Anthropic has been evaluating the capabilities of these models. We want to know as early as we can whether they will have dangerous capabilities that we need to do something about. And we've seen the models get better and better over the course of a few years. And Mythos, which is a new model that we have that we've not deployed and chosen not to deploy to the whole world, we observed went past or is now at a new level of cybersecurity capabilities that required us to take a step back and say, we need to think about how we bring this to the world in a very different way. This model, we noticed, was particularly good at finding weaknesses in cyber systems and figuring out how to take advantage of them. And this is the kind of stuff that human adversaries do today to do things like steal money or private information. And so what we have with Mythos is a new model that has these kind of capabilities, and we decided to hold it back so that we can take a moment to figure out how we can defend the world first using the exact same capabilities to give the rest of us a head start.
Well, this is so fascinating. And, you know, Logan, it's the reason I believe Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent brought together all the major banks to talk about the risks of perhaps AI being able to hack into the banks and figure out how to hack into people's bank accounts. And I asked President Trump about it, whether it is a systemic threat. Is it a systemic threat? Do we have the proper guardrails in place?
I think it's really clear right now that we have these new capabilities and tools that we've never had ever before. And the thing that we need to do now is take a moment to ask and answer that exact question that you're asking. I think we can, with enough time and a lot of effort, we can make these safe, and we can figure out how to defend the world much earlier than adversaries ever get access to systems like this. But to be clear, this is going to require a lot of effort from us, from industry, from government as well, in order to figure out the answer, because we truly are in uncharted times.
So what is possible then? I mean, who gets access to something that could actually impact global infrastructure or global banking?
So the way that we've done it is we wanted to start with a number of the world's most important cyber infrastructure companies, the organizations that make the platforms and the operating systems, the sort of foundations of the internet, because we want to give them the tools first to figure out how we use these to close weaknesses that might be exploited in the future if they don't have these tools. And so we partnered with the likes of JP Morgan, with Cisco, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and a number of others in order to give them early access so that they can start reckoning with and using these systems to defend themselves. Ultimately, we think that tools like this need to be scaled to the world in a secure way, because we need the entire world to be able to use these tools to defend themselves as well. But the challenge is, how do we make sure that we deploy these in an actually safe and secure way? That's a new challenge that we've never had before. This is why we're trying to work on this in this early experiment. It's also why it's going to be really important to work with industry and government beyond us and this model to do that.
So is it fair to say the rules around cybersecurity right now are being rewritten?
We think we're in an unprecedented era of totally new questions we've never had to answer before about cybersecurity. We are now planning for a future of what cybersecurity looks like now that we have AI models that are this capable. And I've been heartened by how positive the response has been with the folks we're working with researchers around the world, because I think they recognize just how serious that is as well. And they're trying to answer all these questions as fast as possible.
Absolutely. And Anthropic is calling its new Claude Mythos a potential cybersecurity reckoning, saying that the tool can identify so-called zero-day vulnerabilities. Can you tell us what some of those zero-day vulnerabilities might be? I mean, hidden software flaws that hackers can exploit before they're fixed? I almost hate asking the question because I don't want you to give away anything to the bad actors, obviously, but I also want to understand more about where the vulnerabilities are and how Mythos can identify them.
That's right. So our entire world runs on software. Our entire world runs on computers and hardware. It all rests on the assumption that we can keep those safe. And sometimes when you write this software, there will be these tricks and turns that some people can take advantage of. And that's when people hack into systems. And so what we did is we wanted to know where we could find these and how at risk different systems were. When we set our research team on this using Mythos, we observed that we could find vulnerabilities using the system in every major operating system and platform that we looked at. And so the takeaway that we had was, this is a very widespread problem. We were finding these vulnerabilities in systems that are, in some cases, decades old, of some of the software that the most advanced people in the world and most advanced tools have been looking at for more than 2 decades. And we were still finding weaknesses. And I think the security world knows that the world has all these vulnerabilities. What we have to do now is reckon with, there are new tools that are coming down the line, this model and future models, that are going to maybe expose these vulnerabilities. So we need to make them secure first.
So, Logan, how do you regulate that? What are the guardrails that need to be in place? And is that something that the White House is in charge of versus private enterprise? Is that something that Congress comes up with in terms of legislation?
I think this is going to start as a collaborative effort here. We've been working with the US government since the early days of knowing about these model capabilities. And ultimately, it's going to require government and industry and the researchers who know these systems the best and know the software the best to understand, how do we make sure that the defenders have access without the bad guys having access? How do we give them enough time ahead of time? It's unclear. We're in such early days, but I am heartened by everybody taking it quite seriously. And we are working really closely with the US government and others in order to figure out what the right answer is.
And in terms of this global cybersecurity consortium that you're launching, Project Glasswing, the other major tech and finance players involved, like Microsoft or Apple, Google, Amazon, JP Morgan, can you tell us if they see it or have seen evidence of hacks in order to come to the table with that kind of knowledge?
What they have seen that we can observe is what they found using this model. And whenever we have given or onboarded our partners to using the model, usually relatively quickly they come back to us and they say, wow, this really is a change for us. We're finding these weaknesses in our systems at a rate that far outpaces what we used to find with all the best tools and all the best humans ahead of time. And I think very quickly in using this model, our partners have realized this is a powerful tool, but more importantly, this is just the beginning of a new era, as you were saying. There are going to be models like this in the future, possibly quite soon, that are as powerful or more powerful, whether they're from other companies or released openly. And what they're recognizing, and our partners are recognizing, is that now having seen what the models are capable of, we need to get ahead of that. We need to prepare for this future where it's not this model that is the one that matters. It's all the other models, and preparing for this sort of general improvement in these capabilities.
Absolutely. Now, Logan, we've got to talk about China. And of course, Michael Kratsios at the White House releasing a very important memo this morning about this. I want to get your take on where China is on all of this, as the president has made it a priority to beat our #1 adversary on AI. What can you tell us about China and the potential of running this industrial scale espionage on the United States to steal American AI?
Well, first, this was a great move by Director Kratsios to clamp down on what we call distillation, which is the attempt frequently by Chinese labs to sort of steal the magic sauce that we put into our models and use it for their own. We know that China is behind, but not always far behind. They produce models that may be months, maybe a year behind the models that we produce. It is really critical that we stay ahead. It's really critical that we make ourselves secure and prevent their ability to take the special sauce that we use to make our models. This has also been a point that we've collaborated a lot with government and across industry on. It is essential. When it comes to cybersecurity, my concern is that if there is a large number of models that frequently are broadly released for anybody to use that have the capabilities as powerful as Mythos and beyond. If they are released by China, then we're in a really tough position. We're going to need to mitigate a lot of risks there.
Yeah, but I mean, Logan, how are we going to stop China from doing this? We know that China has been stealing intellectual property from the United States for decades. Do you have a confidence that, in fact, you can stop China from understanding how the U.S. operates in AI? How would we do that?
First, the good news is that we have managed to stay ahead, and we consistently have. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. We have incredibly brilliant people. We have great chips and a lot of chips. And we have a big focus on security. We need to make sure that our stuff doesn't get stolen, that China or anybody else can't steal it. I'm cautiously optimistic here. We've managed to stay ahead. It is very clear we're in a critical competitive time right now. I think this now begins an even increasingly competitive time. This means we need to work together possibly quite a lot more, especially with the government, in order to clamp down on any chance that anybody steals what we have.
By the way, that's why I was questioning why we would sell chips to China.
We at Anthropic, we strongly think that America should have the best chips. And we need to, that's one of the core parts of our advantage here.
So not sell them to China.
We should have as many as we need first. That's right.
Of course. Logan, it's great to have you. We so appreciate your time on this very important topic. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Maria.